Hey, welcome to the broadcast. My name is John Mayfield, the real estate tech guy, and thank you so much for joining me. It's 2024. How about that? Some of you who may be watching could be saying, I thought about getting my real estate license last year in 2023, the 1st of January, and another year's gone by. So it's not too late to get your real estate license. You can always do that. Well, I want to talk to you today about a couple of items that could be on the real estate exam. One of my goals for 2024 is to try to bring some content for students who are going through the real estate examination and or those who are thinking about getting their license. And hey, for those of you who are my friends and have a real estate license, this stuff always helps to be reminded about how things operate and, remembering some of the definitions and terms from pre-license school. I always tell this story. I got my license, many of you know that, in 1978, but it was 1980 when I went back and got my broker's license. And I'm telling you what, like going back and getting my broker's license took my real estate career to a whole different level. And it's because I really started understanding a little bit more about what I'd been doing for 2 years, and it gave me the confidence to really to just present and talk about topics to my clients and customers. And so it was a huge game changer for me. So if you want to get your broker's license, I'd love for you to sign up for that. And we have a really cool broker's scenario exam-based program that we're including for all of our broker students. So anyway, we want to get into the topic today, and I'm going to be looking at my screen periodically. So if you see me kind of go down and cheat by looking at some of my notes, I hope you all understand that. But I actually am looking at the PSI Candidate Handbook, and one of the sections under estimating value is a bullet point that they talk about. They really want to know the income analysis approach to valuation and appropriate uses that you could see on the examination. In fact, I think they actually title it Income Analysis Approach to Property Valuation and Appropriate Uses. So that's the exact title. So I'm thinking, okay, what do you need to know for that specific topic if you are a global real estate school student or if you're preparing for the real estate examination? And so the first thing we need to know is that this is part of what's called the income approach. We talk about 3 different approaches in the real estate course. We talk about the sales comparison approach or the direct market comparison approach, a couple of different names for that. But sales comparison approach really is generally used for residential properties. That's what many of us are familiar with. We're looking at properties that are similar to the property that we have under evaluation, and we're trying to come up with adjustments for the comparables so that we can arrive at a projected valuation for our property. It's interesting, Zillow and RPR from the National Association of Realtors and many artificial intelligence programs try to make that determination today. Take a quick drink of water there. They try to make that determination today because of the ability to take the comparables and run it through the computer. So the sales comparison approach or the direct market comparison approach for residential properties, we have the cost approach for special purpose type properties, churches, hospitals. It's actually ideal for new homes because there's not a lot of depreciation. So the cost approach looks at reconstructing the property as if it were new and subtracting depreciation. And then we add the land value back in by using the direct market comparison approach, and you come up with a price for the cost approach. One of the videos I do in my course, it's kind of interesting because I went over by the hospital and I shot a video. The hospital's behind me, and I talk about, we'd have to do the cost approach if we were putting a value on the hospital because there's no comparables, and probably you couldn't do the income approach on the hospital, like even though they do generate income. The way you would determine that is through the cost approach. You would figure out, what would it take to reconstruct this building? And then, of course, it has depreciation because there's wear and tear and other things that have happened, functional obsolescence and physical obsolescence, maybe economic outside the property lines. And then we add the land value back in and we come up with a value through the cost approach. And then right across from the hospital are some apartments. And so I kind of pan over there and I say, now let's take a look at the income approach, because that's what the income approach is good for, is income producing properties. Never fails when I get on a video, and I want to have these videos conversational, but I have my heater going and I should have turned that off, so I apologize. It's getting warm down here now. So anyway, income approach. So as I look at the candidate handbook, again, income analysis approach for property valuation and appropriate uses. So, with the income approach, there's a few things you need to know. First of all, you need to know what the net operating income is, okay? Now, there's a difference between gross and net. Gross is the potential rent if everybody pays. However, we normally have expenses. So with an apartment complex, you're going to have expenses that, people to cut the grass and repairs on appliances and so forth. And so when you deduct the expenses, you get what is called net operating income. And we need net operating income in order to work the T problem. And I've got lots of math problems, and I'm not going to work a T problem on this specific video. But the net operating income will allow you then to divide that by a cap rate, and the cap rate will then give you a value. Now, how do you get the cap rate? Well, it just reflects the rate of return an investor expects from the property. And generally, cap rates can be market driven. You might find that people are paying 8% cap rates for certain types of properties. They might be paying a 6% cap rate for apartments, or maybe a 5% cap rate for industrial property. Just again depends on supply and demand in the market. And so once you have the cap rate and the net operating income, you can come up with a value. For example, if you had a cap rate, I'm just going to get my calculator out here. Let's just say you had net operating income of $100,000 and you had a cap rate in that market area of 8%. If I divide 100,000 by 0.08, the value of that property would be $1.250 million, $1,250,000. Now, a couple of things you need to know for the exam. You always work your net operating income on annual numbers. You can't just take a monthly cap rate and divide it, a monthly NOI, and divide it by a cap rate to get a value, because we really need to see what the whole year looks like, not just a specific month, because maybe you pay the utilities for that apartment and you're doing the cap rate in the fall, in October, when nobody's using or September when the weather's kind of nice and nobody's using the heat or air conditioning. So we always need to use net operating income on annual numbers. And you always want to subtract the expenses from the gross income to get net operating income. So don't forget that, okay? So mark a property value, that'll give you the property value. Now, here's what's interesting, and this is sometimes an exam question. There's what we call an inverse relationship to the cap rate and the value. So remember, we had $100,000 annual income, and I divided that by 0.08, which is, let's just say, the going cap rate for these types of properties. And I told you the value was $1,250,000. What if the going cap rate was 10%? Okay, interesting. Now remember, there's an inverse relationship. So at 8% cap rate, the value is $1,250,000. But if we take 100,000 and we divide it by 0.10, the property's only worth $1 million. So you see the inverse relationship? As the cap rate goes up, the value goes down. Now, why is that? Well, put yourself as an investor, okay, and in the shoes of an investor. And I come to you and I say, hey, Mr. or Mrs. Investor, I've got this great deal for you. It's an apartment complex, and the net income is $1,250,000, or the net income's $100,000, and my client's asking $1,250,000. Now, if you, as the investor, have to pay $1,250,000, you're going to get an 8% return on your investment. You've given me $1,250,000, and you're going to receive 8% return on your money. In other words, it's like if you took that $1,250,000 and you put it in the bank, you're going to earn 8% interest because you're going to earn $100,000 every year off of your deposit. Now, think about this. If you put $1,250,000 in the bank's going to give you $100,000 every year. By doing nothing, you're earning 8% interest. With an apartment building, you could have tenants who move out. You could have major repairs, all new air conditioners needed. You could have a parking lot that needs to be repaved. You could have, heaven forbid, a horrible homicide there that scares everybody away, or, people cooking meth in one of the apartments and then people move out because it's contaminated. I mean, all those things could happen, right? There's a risk involved. So you say to me, no, John, I can't pay $1,250,000. However, I could give you $1 million. I go to my client and I say, hey, I have this real estate school student from Global Real Estate School, by the way, who says they'll pay $1 million for your property. And my client says, well, gosh, John, they're going to get $100,000 every year off of this thing, net income. And I said, I know, but they're just worried. There's a risk involved. It's apartments. And so my client says, okay, I'll take the $1 million. So now you are only out $1 million less money, right? And so since you are out only $1 million, what happens to your return? It goes up 10%. So it's kind of like now you're investing $1 million and you're getting $100,000 return. It's a 10%. So there's this inverse relationship. The lower the value, the higher the return on the investor's investment. The higher the value, the lower the return. And the more you have to pay for it, the less attractive it's going to be. So that's where cap rates, net operating income, value all kind of play a role. And you're going to see questions on the exam about this. I call it Uncle Irv. I work a T problem, and I put income on top and value and rate down below. And you're always going to be given two of the answers. You just have to solve for the third. Do you multiply or divide? And I teach you all of that in the school. And I've got lots of videos on my YouTube channel that you can check out there as well. By the way, let me put that on there. Be sure and subscribe to our YouTube channel if you haven't done that. I'd love for you to do that. So again, market analysis can help you determine what the going cap rates are. And if you're in the commercial business, you're going to probably be able to figure that out or find that out. And then, you could look at some comparable sales if they're out there. But really, when we're looking at income producing property, we want to know what's the net operating income. Okay, that's the big thing there that we want to look at. Now, I have a couple of questions here that I came up with, and I think these are very good. So I'm going to read these off to you, and I want you to think about them. What is the significance of considering supply and demand in market analysis for property evaluation? What is the significance for considering supply and demand in market analysis for property valuation? A, it helps determine the property's operating expenses. B, it affects the property's historical performance. C, it influences the property's income potential and value. Or D, it determines the property's zoning regulations. So what is the significance of considering supply and demand in market analysis for property evaluation or property valuation? Well, it influences the property's income potential and value. In other words, if you are in a market where there's limited supply but high demand, then rents are probably going to rise, which means net operating income is probably going to rise, and other factors are probably going to rise. And so it would influence the property's income potential and value. So, supply and demand. If you're in a hot market and there's not a lot available, that those market economic characteristics are going to help push up your market rents, and that's going to help give you more potential income, and more income could lead to greater value. So, income valuation. You're going to see those questions on the exam. Now, I'm actually streaming to LinkedIn and a couple of different channels. I'm going to jump over YouTube only if you want to watch some study or prepare for the exam on my YouTube channel later today. So be sure and subscribe to the YouTube channel. Click on the bell, and each and every time I go live, you'll be able to find out, and you can come over and watch those videos. So I hope you're having a great start to the new year. It's never too late to get your real estate license. I think it's a great career, and I'd love to have you as a student. And we will be here anytime you have questions or need help. Reach out to me. As always, thanks for watching the video. I hope that you will go out and